Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar for today. Before I go ahead and get started, I wanted to ask everyone to please turn off your video. If you would like to make a comment, please turn your video camera on. And if any of you have a question, open up your chat and feel free to send any messages that you have a question and who you are posing your question to. And then I will be your moderator for today. Your moderator today will be Kim Kaus, and she is the Director of Instruction at Indiana School for the Deaf. She has had academic experience from K through 12 for quite some time. She originally is from Minnesota and then moved to Indiana. So welcome, Kim. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Our topic today is online instruction, and I know it's new for all of us. It is an opportunity for us to share today. And I have to admit, here in Indiana, it's not been a smooth transition. But I can talk about what we've been doing, and then I want to open it up and allow you each the opportunity to share your tips, your tricks, what's working, what's not working. There are a variety of areas that we will cover today. For Indiana, the first 2 weeks, we started with 5 days of online instruction each week, and then the Indiana Department of Education changed the number of days that were required. And so just like all of the schools in Indiana, we're doing 3 days a week online learning. We do Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We found that our teachers have more energy and ability to engage with the students in comparison to when they were doing 5 days a week. So it gives them a little more time for self-care and planning. So they are doing online learning Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So I'm curious how you're doing the amount of time for instruction, the expectations for your states. I'm hoping that each of you can share what you're doing. Our elementary department, we are expecting our teachers to do 30 minutes of guided reading one-on-one with their students that Tuesday through Thursday. So if they have 6 to 9 students, they are doing 30 minutes with each one of those students all 3 days. They are doing videos of mini lessons, and they upload those into Seesaw. Our middle school and high school teachers are doing things a bit differently. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, there are 8 periods. So they are doing a class period every hour. On Tuesdays, they do the first 4, and then on Thursday, they do the other 4. Wednesdays are an opportunity for group discussions, one-on-one discussions. They do use Schoology, a different platform than what we use in the elementary department. So a struggle and a question is, are we spending too much time or not enough time with our students on Zoom, that sort of thing. So after we initially started doing those 5 days a week, we did find out the minimum number of required minutes, and we had already begun and started our plan. So I'm curious to how each of your schools is handling that. Are you doing 5 days of e-learning, 3 days of e-learning? What are you doing in each of your schools?
Hi, Kim. I think that I could share a little bit about what we're doing here. Our governor, we have struggled with meeting those minimum educational hours, and we started out with those 5 days right away. And then we decided that we might need to redo some things, and we ended up doing some things differently. We did do Monday through Friday, just in the mornings. And then based on that decision, we were able to build a school district, or we were able to reach out to the local school districts on a daily basis. And we didn't feel like we had any choice but to do it on a day-by-day basis. Looking back, I wish that we would have been able to reschedule so that we didn't have our teachers on a daily basis, that we would maybe alternate our teachers. If we could go back and redo it, I would reschedule it differently. I know with our middle school and high school, they're still following their class periods Monday through Friday. And they're doing those short mini lessons. And some of those feel very rushed because then they have to do them each day. And there doesn't seem to be quite enough time. It's 30 minutes of work, but giving them that instruction time every day. I think that we would have 30 minutes of class every other day if we could go back and redo it. So that's one thing that we would change for middle school, high school. At the elementary level, I think that this schedule looks very similar, having those guided reading times. And then it depends on what grade level, how they are structuring that by each class. I feel that that has been very successful in elementary, but like you said, the teachers are very worn out, and it would be nice to have at least one day a week for professional development or professional learning communities to give them that time to be intentional about making their lesson plans. So if I could, I would go back and tweak the schedule a little bit. We have done surveys to see how we might be able to adjust the schedule, and it would be nice to hear what others are doing as well.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, let's go to Jennifer. Hello. It's really nice to see all of you. It really is nice. For me, it's more of an assurance to know that everyone is doing well and we're having similar challenges. And really what those principles are that we're guiding with. And obviously our key principle is learning, and that we want the students to be actively engaged in learning, as well as looking at how they're learning and making sure that it is engaging for them. So those keys are what we're looking at. We are doing 3 days a week. It depends. Some are doing class periods, some are meeting in small groups, some are doing one-on-one. So there are a lot of variables that we are considering, and it depends on what the parent's situation is at home. We don't want to overload them as well. So we are adjusting schedules if possible to the afternoon to be flexible based on that group of students. We do 3 days a week, and the other 2 days a week is called paced learning. So our elementary department is using IXL, which aligns with our curriculum in Vision. So that's K through 6th grade, and then up through 12th grade, we have another curriculum that we use. So we use the IXL for them, and so the teachers have that to enforce and reinforce those skills. And then it also gives data. So that way they don't have to necessarily post on a particular platform. They automatically get that data through IXL, and the teachers can monitor it that way, which is really phenomenal. We also have Achieve 30 that we do several days a week. And that also does translation for Spanish for families that need that. We also do, I am curious about Seesaw. We have Class Tag and also Dojo that we use. And we do want to be careful about how much we're using these other platforms, making sure that students have those pre-learned skills before they get into those types of software systems. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking families in our schools, so we want to make sure that they have access. And we do know that a lot of schools are using Seesaw, so we'll definitely be looking into that for the future. But thank you so much for sharing. Yes, thank you. I think that is the challenge, isn't it? With Indiana doing 3 days a week, our superintendent of public instruction has mentioned that in the fall, if we go back and have to stay in this same style of learning, we will have to do 5 days a week. So we will have to figure out how to do that and look at the logistics of that. Hello, Jessica.
Yes, that has been a really big challenge for us too, is not using those required waiver days. For enrichment, we're not able to do that at this time. For the elementary, there are 2 different classes that we do twice a week on Zoom, 30 minutes each. For one of those, it's one-on-one twice a week. And at the same time, though, not everyone participates because it's optional. There are parents that feel like it's not necessary. The same thing with our students, that some of them will, on our learning management system, they will have the follow through with the students and they help each other out and they check in. but enrichment is completely optional. So I definitely like Seesaw. I've seen a great success with that. And also with Zoom, being able to have everybody there on video and we can show the text on the screen and we're able to share that. And I've seen a lot more teachers use that, and that has been very successful. So being able to use PowerPoints, I think it's beneficial to everybody being able to share on Zoom. So that's what we're doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see if anyone else wants to comment. Amy, no? As I mentioned previously, what will the fall bring doing 5 days a week, potentially, depending on whether or not there is a second wave that comes through? It could be pretty intense for us. Indiana just made that announcement that we would have to do 5 days a week e-learning if it came to that. We are actually calling our e-learning continuous learning here in Indiana. And so they have given us a list of guidelines, even activities that teachers can use. So there are a lot of choice boards that we're allowed to use where they may have 5 activities on it and the students choose 2 activities. I'm wondering if any other schools are using choice boards or if you're all doing specific assigned pieces of work or assignments. You want me to go?
So as you mentioned, there have been so many challenges with families, internet connectivity, commitment to helping their child to get in and to connect using Zoom. That's one piece of technology that we've been able to use, but it can be overwhelming for some of the families. I am worried about adding Seesaw or other resources, but some of the families are already struggling just using Zoom. We're doing 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. Also 30 minutes of specials, so PE, art, computer, and the kids, that's a way to still keep them active, keeping them learning and using their computer during computer class. That can sometimes be challenging. And then giving them options to the families is sometimes hard. For our teachers, it can be tough as well because they feel like they're lost with most of their resources being in the classroom and they don't have direct access to them. So I like having other resources for them to use. Some of our teachers have developed take-home material like packets that they can send home where the students are able to pick through and use those different options. Whether that's successful yet or not, it's too soon to tell. We will be getting that second round of work back soon, and that will hopefully help us to be able to see if it's truly beneficial or not, and if that's really better than doing it virtually. So that's what we have in place now.
Okay, Mary, would you like to go ahead? Yes, hello everyone. I am not a teacher. I do work as the Dean of Students in resident life. You're mentioning all of your concerns. I do want to talk about student life and how we are having the same challenges in order to support our students in their academics. Trying to really connect those 2 areas. For example, if the student needs support on a specific topic in homework, we have no access to that particular homework assignment as student life individuals. Many of these classes are moving to Google Classroom, which is really nice because they can assign me as a co-teacher. And then I don't have any editing access, but it's very successful because we do have access to the resources. Another challenge from the student life perspective is that having difficulty getting a hold of them in the evenings because parents are busy all day. And then in the evening, we try to contact the students in the evening and we have difficulty connecting with them. So that's just another layer. Thank you. Yes, there are definitely different kinds of challenges out there. In regards to instruction, some people have mentioned IXL. wondering what other apps people are using. I know that someone mentioned some other apps they've been using. We use Newsla. There are other things that can be used that students can use at home through their devices. I'm just wondering what other apps you feel are important and what can you share with our whole group?
We've been using Loom Video for bilingual instruction, and being able to share the book as well as have a video in the corner for bilingual instruction has been great.
That's nice. Thank you. Yes, those are definitely good apps. Any other apps you'd like to share? We haven't used a lot. However, I have been experimenting on my own. Mackin is one that I've looked at. It has a whole host of books. You do normally have to pay for this service. However, they are allowing access for free. So you can choose different texts to use, and I forward them on to the teachers, and then they can use them in their library. They can produce them as storytelling activities, or the students can read them on their own. It's called Mackin. I really like that one. Hello.
Yes, we've been using Miro, and it is a free educator software that has been really good, and it shows that students are able to navigate it easily. And also Nearpad, that one works really well too.
Thank you. Any other apps, bilingual programs that you're using out there? Hello, I do want to share at Riverside, we are using Office 365. It really has everything, 100% everything you need, and I can explain that. So specifically, it does have Teams. Office 365 has a variety of apps that are already included in the program, and it really empowers students to do their own work independently. So Office 365 has, for example, it has Teams, it has SharePoint, it has Class Notebook. A new edition that they just brought on is, it's very similar to Pinterest, but it goes specific to Office 365 and their forms that they already have. So we can monitor what the students are using. And we're able to make sure that, for example, with Teams, it's very similar to Zoom. Teams does have a limited number of students that can participate in any session, but it does have transcripts, something that you can print off when you're done. So those can be shared amongst the students. I think it's been very helpful in increasing our communication. But I do want to mention that with students to keep their motivation up, it is critical. And I do see that starting to lag a bit. They have been going since we're on almost our 7th week of online learning. And they are doing it 4 days a week, every morning. On Mondays, that is the teacher prep period day. So office hours are available for our high school students. For elementary and middle school, it's a bit different. But the teachers are also burning out a bit. So I like the way people are handling different things, and I'm wondering what types of supports we can provide to our teachers and what others are doing out there. Thank you, Nancy. With Office 365, Indiana, we do use that. It does have a lot more features. So we are going back and forth between the two. So we do need to look into how to maximize the usage of Office 365, definitely for our staff.
One tool that our students and teachers are using a lot more now is called Edpuzzle. And that's a video that can be downloaded from YouTube or Khan Academy. And they have different resources, or they're able to video themselves and make their own video that can be uploaded, and then add different segments that you can add comprehension questions. And I think that that's very helpful because then it allows the teachers to be able to see where the students are watching to. They can see how far they progress, or they can see if they're getting all the way through the video or just to those certain checkpoints and they're answering those questions. That way they can check and see if they really understand the content of the video. I know that a lot of our teachers, they're spending a lot of time making videos that are instructional videos, and then the students' work that gets turned in, it doesn't seem that they really understand it. Or sometimes they'll get a response from a student, well, I didn't watch the video, I just thought I'd go ahead and try. And so if they have those questions embedded in the video itself, then you can kill two birds at the same time and make sure that they're not skipping through the questions. They have to actually access the questions as they go through the video.
Thank you, Edpuzzle. Nice. Thank you. Any other comments? Amy? Eileen may be trying to answer this at the same time, but it's important what Nancy said. It is a challenge, definitely. I admit during the school year, we're trying to support the teachers. You know, we really need to feed them. Honestly, I have food. I think feeding them is a way to support them. The first thing that we do, obviously, is we do check-in meetings with the staff. I am doing one-on-one meetings with the staff just to check in, just basically to say, how are you? And keeping an eye on their mental health and giving them that support, I think it's important. Also, our teacher team is very competitive. So we've established a game that we do every morning via email where they have to solve a mystery picture. We take a picture of a building and then they have to identify where that picture is. Some teachers have said that the pictures are too easy, so I had to rethink that. I've got to raise the bar a bit. So I want to be engaging and motivate the teachers. But you're right. The fatigue. We're really on a downward spiral, it feels like, after what Nancy just said. And Kim, you're saying the same thing. We're in our 7th week. So we have offered some lunches for the staff. We drive, the staff can come up to school and pick up lunches and take those home. We do have some staff that live out in the mountains. And yes, normally I wouldn't admit this or share this, but our staff have created TikTok dances. I'm sure a lot of them would not admit to this, but they don't want us sharing these, of course, but it's really just trying to keep them active, engaged, and supporting of them. Because if we support them, then they can continue to support our teachers. So I would love to hear other ideas that other schools are doing to support their teachers as well. Yes, Amy, morale really is important. You have to boost their morale. So providing food, TikTok, that's a lot of fun. I'm sure the teachers are really enjoying that energy and getting a bit of laughter out of it. And I know early on when we started with 5 days a week, the teachers were getting burned out very quickly. So it was a good thing that we were able to change to 3 days a week. However, that doesn't really address the root of keeping them motivated and engaged and upbeat during all of this.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of our staffs, we've done check-in meetings just to check in to see how you're doing, not just the work. And then they said, there's too many meetings. I don't want to sit here and have so many meetings. And so we decided to move that to once a month, make it a happy, like a professional development happy hour. And we have decided to do that where everybody could bring your own drink, come and chat. If you want to talk about work, it's the whole school, from the business office to the teachers, teachers' aides, everybody. And that's really nice. That helps to build some of that connection again.
Cool. That's really a great idea. Happy hour in the late afternoon. That's nice. Via Zoom. That's fantastic. Any other suggestions or comments? As someone mentioned before, I think it's important to get the feedback from the students, check in, see how they're doing, and really doing the same thing. So many people have not experienced Zoom for educational meetings before. So not necessarily happy hour, but social hour for our students, letting them do that and get engaged and showing pictures of their dogs or playing games, that sort of thing. Just a safe place to really let it all out, and letting technology become less threatening for our students in that way. So many of our students live out in the country where they really don't have a lot of experience, and their parents are anxious about the use of technology as well. So really supporting them socially and emotionally, the parents as well as the students, engaging them all. And it is on a volunteer basis. We just want them to be included. We do make that clear. It's really good for our middle school and elementary students, but the challenge that we're having mostly is with our high school students. They are just overwhelmed with so many classes that becomes one more responsibility. It should be something that's fun and just a social hour. So I do feel that support works well for our middle school and elementary, but not as much for our high school students. Oh, that social hour is a great idea. Having those students come together and be able to check in. I think that's great.
Yes, it's just really interesting that there are so many different phases that we've experienced. In March, when school was announced that it would be closed, we were making decisions based on 2 weeks at a time and then just waiting to see. And we were getting so many questions from parents that we weren't able to answer, and then facing the same thing again 2 weeks later and having so many unknowns. Then last Friday, we had the announcement that would be closed until the end of the school year. And really saw morale drop at that point. I think that with PBIS, we have that during the school year, and so many of them already have that incorporated where you're building in those positive supports, that positive support system for our school culture. And then with the school closing, we thought about doing that every Friday with your class to be able to recognize and to give certificates. And since then, we've tried to continue to do that, but make those virtual recognitions and then mail them the certificate to that person to give them that additional commendation or praise, and sending those in the mail. And then the person that got theirs the week before, they're able to share it so that other students are able to see some kind of tangible evidence of
Right.
that positive support there in the class. It's like they won the lottery, that kind of thing, where we're able to build that connection back in. And so we've decided to start doing that on Fridays and to give those certificates. Interpreter, are you okay? Okay, so just having a reward on a virtual basis to be able to increase motivation just a little bit with our students.
And so on Fridays, is it each class, or how are you managing that?
Each teacher is doing it individually with their own class, and then after the cafeteria period, then everybody's able to join, is how we used to do it. But for our students, we're doing it for each class, and then we're jumping into each of those classes every Friday.
That's a great idea. It's a really great way to motivate the students and keep them going. Nice. Any other comments in regards to motivating the staff or the students in supportive manner? Anyone else? Okay, the next question I'd like to pose. We've talked a lot about the class, the number of minutes you have to be there. I'm wondering how each school is handling attendance. Our middle school and high school teachers, of course, they are doing Tuesday through Thursday classes, as I've mentioned. They meet. And then we also have Schoolology, where all of the classes need to check in before 3 p.m. So if a student has 4 classes on a Tuesday, then they have to check into those 4 classes in those off classes in Schoology on that same day. So then our secretaries are feeding in that attendance based on those check-ins. How are your schools handling attendance? Are you doing it at all? Are you just basing it on whether or not the student is present. Elementary, we don't seem to have any kind of problem with that. We have the one-on-one instruction that's going on, so the attendance is already built in. But middle school and high school, it's a bit challenging to make sure they're staying engaged and managing to do that via attendance. So many of our older students do stay up all night. Their schedules are completely flip-flopped at this point. Just wanting to open up that question and thoughts on attendance and how you're handling that. We're still not really sure we've got an effective means to measure attendance, and there are pros and cons to the ways that we're currently doing it. Hi, Clark.
I know one of the challenges that we're facing is with the check-ins. The teachers have to have contact with a student if they are not checking in. And so we have a student support liaison for each of those departments to have that outreach. We know that some students have difficult home situations. Other students are able to work independently. Some of them are having technology challenges. We did just send out more iPads to some. We did find that some families are sharing, and then that lends itself to more frustration. So those are just some of the challenges, but I think most importantly, just being able to reach out to about 90% of our students and to catch those that are falling through the cracks. So yes, it has been tough.
I do have a question. With attendance, I'm wondering if it's required for all. Our school in New York online, one of the guidelines is that attendance is required. So for us, what we are doing is that the teachers have the same homeroom in Power School, and some students do need a bit more time, which is fine. So we check in with the parents, but we do know for sure that there are some students that have not done assignments in a couple of days. Then we definitely put that in as an absence. So in Power School, we are translating that to, there are alerts that we have where we can send those to the families. So if there's any deduction, we are using that in Power School and sending that on to the families. Please make sure that your child is checking in on their assignments. So we send that to those families who we are not hearing from, or those students that we're not hearing from. So then they, of course, they're Johnny on it once they get that message. And so there's a variety of reasons why they may not be getting done what they need to, but obviously it's very challenging to try to reach out to every single family. So that alert system in Power School is really nice for us to be able to use, and often they respond back, and then that allows us to support them. I'm wondering if schools are doing the same thing. Indiana, we are required, we're doing something very similar. We are logging our attendance, and so our secretaries are logging that, and we've had to develop, if we hear from them by 3 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, of course, it's not a perfect system, but it is what we're doing. Nancy?
Yeah, we're doing things a little bit differently. California is not requiring that we track attendance. The state superintendent for education for California has stated that they feel that this would cause a lot of racial inequality, that because of the socioeconomic setting, that because of that, they've chosen not to. Of course, there is a push and an expectation to find ways to make sure that students are gaining access to the academics, but some of the parents, they actually want documentation in the IEP that the student is not actually physically attending school. So we are trying to keep data just in case.
But we can only do so much.
But we can only do so much.
Thank you again. Of course, it varies from state to state what the state is requiring, and there are adjustments being made on each end. Yes, Mary? Yes, in Kansas, if there are excessive absences, then we do send out a truancy letter. Of course, we make every effort to reach out and make contact with every student, but if there is a student that we continually are unable to contact, we do send out those truancy letters. My question is, how are others doing grades? for those who are not inputting homework or not attending. I'm wondering what the systems are out there for everyone else. Yes, there is a question about grades. Does everyone see that? Jennifer?
Yeah, I know for us in our elementary and our high school, we're tracking it differently. In the state of New York, again, it's another one of those things with the report cards. They've allowed that to be a local decision. And so following New York City schools, the mayor made the announcement that they would like he would like the grading system to look like. And so in high school, it's set for pass or fail. In the elementary, it's either meets or needs improvement. And so that is the scale that they're using on a 1 to 4. And that's what we're using for now. And the third quarter, it will be a little bit different because it was halftime in school and halftime e-learning. And so being able to base that scale, we decided to just leave their grades as what they were and to have a clean slate for them, and that it's reflective of what they learned in school. So having that language there about what we've been doing so far and what e-learning looks like and what we're requiring. As far as sending home report cards into the district and what each district would like, and having that ready. For the fourth quarter, then it is going to be based on that scale. And then for high school, it's pass fail.
Thank you. Hello. Yes, I work with a variety of districts, and some districts, it varies from district to district. Mostly we're looking at their IEP goals. That's what we're measuring for progress, and that's it. Because of that, it is interesting. We can't really weight their academic progress because their goals do require so much support and accommodations. So I do feel like that puts us in a bit of a sticky wicket, but we'd rather, a lot of the students would rather go to receive their services than be at class. So the parents are already focused so much on the students' services that they don't necessarily encourage the students to continue to engage in academics. So of course we don't want to see that, and we don't want to fail them because of that conflict, but it does make it a difficult situation. I'd like to add a comment. Our elementary department is standards-based. They meet the standard, they show progress, or they have mastered that. For middle school and high school, again, in Indiana, there was no strong guideline. There are some schools that are doing grades. There are some that are doing pass-fail. We really want to look at the equity of access that they have. So in third quarter, they may have had a B, and then fourth quarter is, if it's a little more iffy, we really want to honor the work that they have shown. So we may still give them that B. So we want to make sure that we're offering that up to them because of the challenging situation. Jessica?
Yes, right before spring break, when we finished between first semester and that third quarter, we averaged out those grades. And then we used that to be able to give parents their preference about giving their student an opportunity to make some changes or to pull that grade up. And then it's open to anyone that, even if they have an A, like if they have a B and they want to work on getting that back up, but the parents have to reach out to us by May 22nd to give them the opportunity to use that work from that first 9 weeks. And then every Friday they'll have an opportunity to do that catch up work. And that's part of that recovery process on Fridays, where they can try to improve that grade. And it's just for that 9-week period. So for those who would like to make that improvement, then they have to reach out to the school. And then if not, then that would be their final grade. And they have until May 22nd to make that request.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, if there are no more comments with that topic, I'd like to move on to technology. Our schools providing hotspots, Wi-Fi spots, that sort of thing. We know that we have families that don't have access. How are you providing? How are you supporting for those families, or what have you been doing? I'm curious so that we can all make sure that we have a plan in place for the fall. In Indiana, our students all have iPads. Wi-Fi and hotspots we do not have ready for the families, so we are looking at our options now for the fall so that we can potentially purchase some. There's one company, Kajit, that focuses on schools, so there you can purchase a certain number of hotspots and provide those possibly, and it does give a pretty good number of access. We do have quite a few families that do have good access. We do have some that have spotty access. So we do feel like we are going to have to purchase something like that for the fall if necessary, so that we can provide that. So that is a challenge. Our families do have access to technology through the iPads, but they don't necessarily have the Wi-Fi access. So
yeah, we face that too with the hotspots. All of our students have devices, whether it be a laptop or a Chromebook or an iPad, depending upon their age. And unfortunately, our families do have internet access for the most part, but some do not. And so we've been looking at a way to buy hotspots, and that's been a real struggle. That's one of the things on our priority list that's competing with all the other concerns, because there are those that are missing out. And so we do want to have that ready in the fall. So we're there with you. We've reached out to some of the departments that they have a contract with Comcast where they're able to provide that for the families, 6 months of free access. And then after that, they pay $10 a month. So we've tried to get some of the families connected with that. We've actually tried to apply through the local school district. I've gotten 2, and I've given those to the students, but some of the families were already able to find another way on their own. But again, equity is another one of those issues where it's just not very clear for everyone to have internet access. So that's definitely a concern. So I'm interested in hearing if anybody else has anything in plans for buying hotspots or not.
hello, I'm from Kansas, and for our students with hotspots, we encourage them to go to their local district, because the districts they're already providing free lunches, possible Wi-Fi access. But I do know that the families are if they have a difficult time with the district, then they can check back with us. There's also a contract with Verizon, and some of our staff even don't have good Wi-Fi access. And so some of the staff are able to use that from our school as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. So the school is providing staff, or is it free? I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm just wondering how that's working. I know that is a challenge, getting online access. You know, we assume that all of our teachers would have high-speed internet and be able to access that. You don't think about that additional challenge and the number of hotspots you have available, and even potentially for staff. That's a good point. Jennifer? Oh, okay. What devices are you using out there? iPads? Are they successful? Would you prefer to have laptops? All of our students, elementary through high school, do have iPads. I feel like maybe laptops would be more successful with our older students, but we traditionally have been using iPads, and I'm just curious what the other schools are using out there and what's effective for you.
That's a good question. Before school closed, our students in high school already had Chromebooks that they had been using. When school let out, they were allowed to take those home with them and
use them through Google Classroom.
And to be able to get through. We do have hotspots that do have pretty good speed. And the elementary, some of them don't have anything. They have iPads in the classroom, but they're not allowed to take them home. So it was a lot easier to coordinate the devices with our high schoolers, but then the Wi-Fi access was another concern. And so it was something that we had to come up with overnight. We got the announcement. And so fortunately, our high schoolers were already good. And we were able to hurry. We had 2 hours where we were able to try to, as quickly as possible, distribute Wi-Fi hotspots to our families. And then our support team is trying to share information with families about different connectivity options in their area, some of those free temporary solutions depending upon where they live. For the elementary, we had 2 hours to start to get them charged up and to get everything loaded for 2 weeks worth of material, to include surveys about what they might need. And then at the same time, working on getting ready to work from home and to set up e-learning and to get a packet set up that we were able to send home. So within 4 weeks, everybody had something to work with. But you're right, like Kansas mentioned about the local school districts being able to provide that. We have a few in the elementary level. Some we were not able to successfully be able to provide it, but the local school district was able to get a keyboard or a Chromebook or some of the specific accommodations that they needed for some, whether it was a touch screen or a keyboard. And the local school district was able to provide some of those resources too.
You're right. Working with the local school district is really a great idea. And we've done that as well when we can. Some of our local schools are offering Wi-Fi in the public school at their parking lot, so the students can get taken in there and park there. So we've let them know what's available in their area. Now, some obviously they wouldn't want to drive an hour to do that. So we do have some families that have not taken advantage of that. But we do know that some of our districts locally are providing that, especially because they didn't have, a lot of time to prepare for that distance learning. So here in Indianapolis, IPS is one of the larger districts. They just bought 40,000 hotspots to be ready for the fall. They were not ready at all. So there's one channel that they can look at from 8 to 10. And many of their students don't have access. So they've actually gotten a TV station from 8 to 10 that they're able to log on to and view what they need. So hotspots definitely can be effective, and we're looking at how we can do that and how many we would need. I do think that we have some families that are in good shape. I would say 60 to 70% are in good shape, but 30% we do need to make sure they have access. The students need access to language because they don't have that communication at home. So they have less access in general. So it makes it even more critical that we provide that equity of access to instruction and language. And so we will be finishing up May 22nd as a school. So we have 2 weeks left, and there's really a lot to ponder between now and then. If we are going to have to continue this in the fall, there are no easy answers. 5 days of instruction is really going to be a different picture altogether. So there are a lot of variables and questions and challenges that we need to address so that we can support our teachers and students. I do have another question to pose to the group. Are you, as schools, having your teachers offer a certain amount of time for office hours, say once a week, 8 to 10? Or is it working out that the students can just reach out to the teachers? Are you requiring established office hours for your teachers? Hello, yes. All of our teachers do have office hours set. The high school teachers are doing it on Mondays. Elementary and middle school, I believe, is Fridays. But we have had some issues with that. Many of our students are lonely, and so they're contacting the teachers in the evenings, on the weekends, and they just want to chat with the teachers. So boundaries are becoming blurred and a bit fuzzy. So we have had to have the principals reach out to the teachers and remind the teachers that they do need to set some specific boundaries. We do all have the empathy for our students that may not have good communication at home, but how can we encourage that interaction amongst their peers instead of crossing those boundaries with our teachers and students? Some of our students have difficult lives, and our teachers are becoming too emotionally involved.
I thought that I might be able to share a similar experience that Nancy just mentioned. As being part of student life, we have had students contact others in the middle of the night or on the weekends. And so having our staff to set those boundaries and remembering that while we're in school, the students don't contact us in the evening or on the weekends. So maintaining those same boundaries. Also, if we have fun games that we have set up during Zoom time that staff are able to join, they might not realize that the students need that same kind of time to be able to know how to reach out to one another, to continue to stay in touch. And so that's definitely been a challenge for our school too.
So it's interesting with office hours. We do not have any fixed office hours at this time. It is something to consider for future reference, but often our teachers are hosting classes through Zoom. And we do see that the parents wanting to interject and have conversations with the teacher about the student's behavior, et cetera. And I don't think oftentimes our parents don't realize that that is the time for that. So we do ask all videos are on mute. So then the parents really can't interject that type of conversation. It allows us to block them a bit so that they can't get in. And so I'm thinking that office hours would be a good solution for that. Additionally, I just wanted to briefly share about the iPads. I'm wondering with devices such as iPads are a good idea. In New York City, the Department of Education has made sure that all of the students have iPads with T-Mobile service on it. So they all have access. Wow, that's really nice. But one drawback of the iPad is that I think there's a limit of, you can only see 6 people at a time on the iPad. So if you have a larger group or more people participate, you do have to swipe back and forth to see those other individuals, which becomes a challenge and a bit awkward. But the nice thing about it is that it is portable and you can set it up anywhere. So there's pros and cons to look at with the iPads. Oh, that's true. You make a good point with the iPads. We have teachers that are joining potentially with department meetings, and we could have 15 to 20 people on those department meetings at the same time, and the teachers are having to do that same thing. They do have to swipe, whereas with the laptop, it is nice. It's very fixed.
Talking about devices, it's really interesting. I know that the teachers, they have set up Mondays and Fridays with office hours for 3 hours at a time, 2 hours for courses on Mondays and Wednesdays. They have English department Tuesdays and Thursdays, social studies and science, and that's set from 10 to 12. Then 1 to 2 are for those elective courses like careers, PE. Those are set for once a week. But anyway, back to
core classes.
The core classes. The teachers have Zoom once, they are able to do one-on-one, and then they have office hours on Fridays and school hours, so from 8 to 3 or 8 to 4. So if a student emails them to set up an appointment, if they want to do it on Hangouts, they can open it up so that they can come in by appointment only. And so that's one way that they can meet with their teacher, and the teachers can remind them that if they would like to make an appointment, they can, to do those one-on-one sessions, and they have that available once a week. So that's how we're doing it.
So on Fridays is office, and then they do those alternating days, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday?
8 to 10, and then from 1 until 3, they can book by appointment only. Also, that's available for the dorm staff too, for tutoring and for additional support in the afternoons. And so there's a little bit of overlap there with the residential staff and the paraprofessionals.
Thank you. It's nice to be able to include those other staff members, such as student life and paraprofessionals, to be available in the afternoon to provide that additional support. So for Indiana, One of our challenges is that our teachers have to complete a log every day to document their work. That is a state requirement. All state employees do have to fill out teacher or logs, and our teachers are not enjoying that. They don't enjoy it. So every 30 minutes to an hour, they have to document their time. So they have classes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm wondering how you're addressing elective classes and your CTE courses. What are the different schools doing? The public schools in the elementary, they are not offering specials at all. Middle school does offer elective classes, but elementary, for the public schools, they're not doing anything. I'm wondering how your schools are doing that. Are you doing Zoom meetings, or is it just posting assignments on a variety of apps such as Seesaw, and then the students can view those and respond to those? I'd like to see the different perspectives for that. I can add one more app. We use Flipgrid. Our teachers use a lot of that, and it's nice for those elective type courses such as PE, weightlifting, etc. For our CTE and specials, they all have a page. They post a weekly challenge. And so the CTE for high school, for example, they develop 2 different plans, one for elementary that may be building a house with a deck of cards, for example. They have a challenge of building one of those, and then the high school, it may be that they create a birdhouse or something like that. So they do different things. In our cooking class, they do something similar. You know, they make creamed butter in the elementary school level, and then high school, they may do something more advanced. So PE, they're going back and forth that same way. So posting assignments for each of the classes. Okay, good. Any other comments on what you're doing with specials, CET courses? Our teachers are posting assignments and activities. They're not doing Zoom classes for the most part. I'm trying to think, it varies. They may be meeting with them once a week. The classroom teachers have a much more stringent schedule, but our elective classes, they are working around what the classroom teacher schedules already are in our elementary school. Middle school and high school, they do have those scheduled.
We're doing the same thing, but for many of my special teachers, they're struggling with feeling kind of out of the loop. They're feeling left out. With our elementary teachers, it's 3 adults and a paraprofessional. And so we're trying to find ways to make sure that they're still included. And that's part of another one of our challenges.
Mm-hmm. That is a challenge for our teachers as well, because they have to log all of their activities. So they have to make sure that if they're doing a project, really planning ahead for specific teachers, it's really not necessarily as heavily involved. For our classroom teachers, they obviously have that one-on-one instruction, but the specials teachers, not so much.
Our teachers have to do a log too for recording purposes, for attendance, for IEPs, for tracking of services. And so our teachers are required to do that too, but it's not necessarily a lot more for us to monitor. The teachers are just keeping a log of their time for what they did for each day and putting that on their log. For our elective class teachers, especially for middle school and high school, they're still required to teach class just the same as they would for when they're in session in the live building. They are making sure they're following that same curriculum, same standards. The same thing for art and for PE. PE is a little bit different, but our art teacher, because of her personality, she's very comfortable with technology, so it hasn't been difficult for her. It's a very popular class. Our elementary students want that class, so and they have their own projects that they're doing, and she has a grant where she's able to send some art supplies home to the students.
Nice.
And they're able to get those supplies to do different activities, and I think that that is really good. It's something outside of Zoom and just virtual meetings. And I think that's a bit of a motivator for those students too, and for the ECE. And so they have those electives for all ages. And of course, there's different expectations in those electives.
Thank you. Any other comments about CTEs or elective classes? I actually have a question that I'd like to pose to everyone. I'm wondering, for life skills programs, how are you handling that? I know that's a challenge. I feel like we're doing pretty well with that, but I would love for people to share out what they're doing with those programs. Yes, life skills programs. It's definitely been a challenge to make those accommodations, to provide that visual support. It has not been easy. I am curious to hear what other schools are doing for their life skills classrooms. Hello.
Hi, I'm from
Rocky Mountain Deaf
Rocky
School.
Mountain Deaf School, and we are using, well, what we have found with our life skills students, that they do better with Google, using Google Hangouts, because we are able to use it to send emails to them, and then we can send it directly to that particular classroom. And then also with our life skills teachers, they've been really doing a lot of things at home, like asking them to cook things or to clean, or they are asking things to be sent to the teacher. And it's helpful for the parents too, because it teaches them how to wash the dishes or to help out with different daily at-home tasks that can apply to school too, to help them to be successful.
Those are wonderful ideas. Yes, applying those skills at home and school. Any other ideas for the life skills programs? Indiana has two different groups. We have life skills, functional skills, and then we have another group of kids that are more severe disabilities, that have minimum sign skills, highly rely on picture support. That's been a real challenge for us. We have a smaller number of students, but it may be that we are sending home paperwork. Really what we're doing is more supporting the family just on the IEP goals. That's really what we're looking at, is how we can focus on the IEP goals. So they're both considered life skills groups, but we have a group that are minimal language skills, and then we have the other group of students that are really doing functional skills. Any other comments about that? Yes, I actually have a funny story to share with our middle school teachers. With our alternative education electives that we have, they teach cooking, and they wanted to teach how to cook pancakes for Mother's Day last week. So the teachers were explaining that to these students, and these students were following along. And so they said, go into the kitchen and get these items. And so the students went and they came back. One student came back and brought cookies and ended up eating them during the class period. And the teacher really was trying to get the students' attention, had difficulty communicating, and really just lost control of that. Then the other students said, oh, I have cookies too. And they ran off the screen and went and got cookies. And then the mother comes in, and so the classroom management in that case just went right out the window. And it was a funny moment. However, the teacher really was really inspired, because it seems that the parents were really becoming more involved, and it was nice. And our teachers do call home and give the parents tips and what they need to do. It's difficult for the parents to keep them busy. So it's a good opportunity for those parents to build their relationship with their own children, and those communication skills are growing. So I do view that as definitely a positive. I see a comment about ULS, Unique Learning Systems. That is another program that is used with our life skills students. And that does have online features. We are not using that completely at this time, but we will be maximizing the use of ULS for the fall. But a lot of our functional curriculum kids are getting packets sent home because typically they are working one-on-one in the classroom. So that was a comment that was just made.
I thought I would throw out another idea, if you don't mind. I know that someone mentioned something about classroom management. I'm wondering how you all are doing that when you're working with the students from home. For students who have trouble maintaining attention, how are you all handling that?
That is a fantastic question. Classroom management can be an issue. The students start playing around. They may not be dress appropriate for school, maybe coming in their PJs. What are the experiences and challenges that you're seeing out there? Yes, we are using the PBIS approach with our team. So we have an elementary team that works together. So they create a video that shows video expectations when working from home. So they send those to the parents and the parents share those with the students. Then we also have voiceover in English and also Spanish translation so that families can follow along. If anything happens that we need to address, we do have a meeting for our teachers with our parents so they can participate with our student support team as well. And we talk about different supports they can use. Sometimes it's that the video doesn't have enough information, so then we create other things that we can use to support them, such as a token board or first and then, depending on the age of the students. So slowly bringing that into the students and starting out with smaller increments of time and building up from there. And then also using charts. So we really are relying heavily on PBIS even during this time. That is a good idea to use PBIS, and we use something called SOAR, and that would be a great support for our families and students as well in this environment. Would anyone else like to share some of their successes or things that aren't working?
Hi, yes, I was going to add to, I know I've heard some of the teachers complain about students disrupting the class. They want to goof around, or they want to talk, or they want to look at their phone instead of paying attention. And so what our teachers are doing is, if you are not able to get their attention, our teachers have the control of their videos. They will turn that student's video off for maybe 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and then they'll turn their video back on and say, okay, are you ready to participate now? And so that's more of a positive way to keep their attention and to keep them on track without them disrupting the class. So that's one thing that I've seen done.
Thank you. Yes, stopping the video is something that can be done. That way they're not kicked out of the classroom, but you just pause that video for a moment, and then when they're ready to join again, they can jump on. So I just have a question. If anyone has any ideas about students that come in late, so the teacher may be in the middle of a discussion or explanation, and then a teacher comes in after the fact and the teacher has to reiterate those instructions. How are you handling that? That is a great question. You know, those class periods are 30, 40 minutes. They don't have a lot of time. They may come in 15 minutes after it started. You know, do you make them wait in the waiting room? If you're using Zoom, you can do that. I'm curious, what are other schools doing? I'm trying to remember here what we're doing. I don't know that I've heard a lot of complaints about students coming in late. That's a good question. I'll have to check in with our principals. I do know that the principals are holding department meetings. And if the teachers, this is obviously just for adults, if they come in late, he does just go, our principals just do go ahead with the meeting and proceed. They're not going to pause. And you can't have an effective department meeting if people keep coming in at different times. So they may give 5 or 7 minutes and then they close the meeting so that they just continue on. And that way you're able to continue. So that is for the adults. Hello, I'm from Indiana. For elementary, if they join late, we typically set up 10 minutes early. It's an opportunity for social time with the students and the teacher. So that way it also gives the teacher the opportunity to interact with the families, texting, asking if they're going to make it. Sometimes it may be that a student is overslept or that sort of thing. So then the teacher can take those videos off if those students aren't going to make it. That gives them 10 minutes beforehand, and they're able to proceed from then. And they do also offer 2 different meeting times, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So they're able to do that. It's a daily check-in in the morning and the afternoon.
And is that working for them?
Yes, and our teachers for elementary, they may have 8 or 9 students, so they try to close the meeting by the time it's really supposed to start so they can progress. The teachers also have that one-on-one time with those students, and so that gives them an opportunity to address any issues if the student has not participated in the meeting like they have to. As for middle school, high school, I'll have to leave that response to Andy. I do want to go back to classroom management. We are also using PBIS, and many of our teachers are using, have brought their motivational charts, etc., their sticker charts from school to home. So they have brought those into the home environment. They are using those and using those same sticker charts. If they have a goal to earn 100 stickers, for example, they are still using those same skills in e-learning. So if they can normally would collect marbles to get to a certain number to get a reward, they are doing that same thing in their Zoom meetings. So they are applying those same skills for classroom management with the group approach anyways. Thank you. Any other comments, things that are working at the variety of schools that are out there? And of course, every school is different. Some may let the students join in at any time, and others may have a more rigorous schedule where they only allow them in for a certain amount of time before they go ahead and proceed. That's understandable. Any other questions or comments? Really, this is your time. This is your opportunity to brainstorm, to ask those questions. Let's see. I unfortunately can't see your name. I'm sorry. It's not showing very well. Candy, go ahead.
Okay. I'm curious about for the directors, closing out for the school year, the normal cleanup of school and waxing the floors and putting away curriculum materials and school wrap up. Since we're coming to that part of the year, how are you handling that?
Jason, do you have the same question or topic, or you want to? Okay, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and answer Candy, and then I'll turn it over to you. For Indiana, we already have, the governor has several phases of transition that is lessening the restrictions. We're on phase 2. So the teachers are staying home until May 22nd, until school is concluded. The teachers do actually continue working until June 10th. So now I am working with my team to make that schedule on how the teachers can return to school. They may have a select number of days. We may do something like lower elementary K through 2 coming in on certain days, and then upper elementary coming through on different days. We're obviously not going to have everyone come in at the same time. We are going to be staggering that. So we have almost, 2.5 weeks basically of time to clean up and get things taken care of. So for us, it's 12, 13 days to figure out that schedule and stagger those times to wrap up the year. That's what we're doing in Indiana. So we will be letting people come back in. Any other state schools, did you want to comment on how you'll be wrapping up and checking out for the end of the year?
Yeah, if I could add to Kim's comment, every year we do an end of the year checklist. We wrap up our IEPs, progress monitoring, we return keys, we return curriculum materials. And so we're looking at May 24th through June 10th, we will have that checklist. And then in June, we usually set up a single day for parents to come back to the school and to drop off iPads, and at the same time to pack up some of their personal effects that they haven't been able to take home yet. We're going to plan to do that on June 3rd and stagger the parents, and maybe even have staff go to some of the students who are not able to make it to site for that pickup or drop off that week of June 3rd, June 4th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then having an opportunity for PLCs and sharing about what we might be able to do when we come back to school in the fall, if we have to continue with distance learning or having scaled groups. So we have a checklist, like a to-do list.
Thank you. Any other comments that go along with Candy's question? Yes, we do have ESY every year, and we're still waiting from the state to hear if we can continue with that through distance learning or not. And then we'll be phasing back to school as well. I don't know how that's going to work, but if it's distance learning, obviously we'll all be staying home. That's not a priority for us. We have to develop it based on there may be restrictions and requirements in regards to how we need to clean. So we will be waiting to hear. We want to make sure we have a productive plan in place. But for now, I have been talking with my team about how to collect things because really a lot of people did not get a chance to collect all of their items. So we will do a staggered schedule as well. And if we have to keep doing distance learning, I'm sure people will want to pick up things for summer as well. So it'll just vary based on where we head from here on out, but we will stagger it just like you've said. And also, we just have to think about what summer's going to look like. We really don't have that information about summer. I'm wondering what other schools are doing in regards to ESY because it has not been announced for New York yet. Any other comments?
Yeah, so we actually just had our announcement yesterday about housekeeping coming back, and then maintenance, and then in 2 weeks, the secretarial staff, the administrative assistants, one person will be able to, is back today, but the rest will be back in 2 weeks. And HR, the business office, they'll be back in 2 weeks. May 22nd, teachers will be able to come back to their classrooms for check-in. And what the rules are is that everyone is supposed to go through the health center and get their temperature taken. Everyone has to wear masks and have 6 feet social distancing at all times. So that's what we're doing here in Kansas. Oh, and one other thing to answer the one comment about ESY, we are still planning on doing virtual ESY.
Okay, virtual ESY. Jason, I think you had a comment. Yes, hello. This is a different topic, but I'm just wondering, many of our students come from large families, and the parents may have 3 or 4 children at different grade levels. And those parents experience a lot of fatigue from all of the Zoom meetings. So we are trying to figure out ways to help these families. I'm wondering what everyone's experiences are and any feedback anyone may have and what their experiences are with that. Yes, so those families with multiple siblings, how is that being handled? Here in Indiana, I do notice that we're seeing that more in elementary. It just happens that we have some families with multiple siblings, kindergarten, 3rd, 4th grade at the same time, and the parents are overwhelmed. Especially there's one particular family that I can think of. They've got a child with autism and then 2 older kids. And so those are additional challenges and needs that need to be met. And so each of their children's teachers are trying to contact them and participate. So for us, we decided to do a point of contact, one staff member for the whole family. And then that teacher, who is the point of contact, then shares that information with the teachers, also gets the information from the teachers and relays that on to the family so that they can make that schedule and make sure that the children are able to participate in that Zoom meeting so that it doesn't become laborious on the family. So we do sometimes have two paras that work with those families as well that can support the families for a little more lengthy time. And then it does mean there's a little less contact for the teachers, but we're trying to provide as much support for the parents as possible because, you know, in this case, this parent's literally been brought to tears by the level of stress and being just overwhelmed with the level of needs for the e-learning, et cetera. How about the rest of you? Do you have any other planned approaches for those families with multiple children?
Hi, yes, we've been trying to provide a lot of assignments that include the families, so different activities, things that they can do while they're working that benefit everyone around them, like have the child read with another person or teach their brother or sister how to sign something, or just different family activities where they're able to work together. That's what we're trying to encourage.
That's a good idea. Those activities that include the whole family. Any other comments? So developing activities that just include multiple members or benefit all of the family at once. And then additionally, having those other staff members support the family. Any other comments? Yes, I actually have another question if nobody else has a comment. I'm wondering how you are handling other staff members that don't work directly with students currently. They do normally at school, but virtually they don't have that opportunity. So counselors may be still working, but those other individuals, those other resource teachers that don't necessarily have direct contact with the students virtually. In Indiana, we have 2 deans of students for elementary and the middle, one that covers middle school, high school. So they've been focusing a lot on our data, looking at our incident reports, the bullying issues, where those locations are. So while we are closed, this is a great opportunity to really dig into that data. So I would say the deans at the beginning were doing a lot of traveling, delivering iPads, arranging those things. So they were out in the community helping for the first couple of weeks. And then as of late, they've really been looking at our data. They've also been making videos about dress code, about expectations. So it's a combination of making videos and working specifically on data. But I would say that really they've been tearing into the data more than anything else because it's a great opportunity to make those comparisons from year to year. So it's a great data analysis time. We have Skyward. Some people may use PowerSchool, but we use Skyward. And so they are able to get in there and make sure that all the data is clean in there and where it needs to be for the end of the year. Trying to think of our other staff members. Our behavior specialists and counselors are still working with families and students. Our social worker is still pursuing our families and reaching out to them, those families that have kind of fallen off the grid. Related services are still providing therapy one-on-one. I'm trying to think of what other staff members could be doing or what other staff member would be included in that. Any other comments? Our literacy specialist is working directly with our teachers, working on those reading levels and also working on our curriculum maps, updating those, reviewing those with our teachers. So our specialist does a lot with our reading and writing maps. She's working on those currently. Any other thoughts? Any other positions that you are considering and what they're doing out there right now? Okay, any other questions that you have?
What about paid staff? Giving them different projects. For example, we have a full-time Spanish mediator, so meeting with family meetings for parents. Now that school is closed, they are still doing translation work for case conferences or for parent meetings. They're doing one-on-one meetings with students. They have to have a request first, but they're doing that. We also have an ASL specialist who's responsible for assessing students. And then with school being closed, they're still doing those assessments virtually with families. So they still have a full schedule. And they're also doing ASL videos. That way they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Having some of those stories that they're producing to have ready and available for staff. Also having some fun events like game time for students that they're sharing with others, and doing some of that translation work to keep everyone engaged. I know my administrative assistant has been very busy doing packets and doing assignments that are being sent out, scheduling meetings, as well as other projects that they're taking advantage of. And so we're still keeping all of our staff on the books.
Oh, thank you for sharing those ideas. Any other comments or thoughts or even questions? I think we've covered a lot of ground today, a lot of information. There's just so many things that we could discuss. This is recorded, so if you would like to review it, because there was so much covered, you can review this video and refer back to all of the information that's been covered, whether it be technology, classroom management, etc. Jessica?
Yes, that has been a lot of information taken. I've made some notes of some things that I've taken in that are new. And just looking ahead, it might be too early, but we have to consider it anyway. I'm curious what your plans are. Of course, we hope that we'll be back in the school building, but that may or may not happen. So what are your plans going forward?
Oh, it's a tough question. Planning ahead. For Indiana, our governor will not announce the expectation until July 1st. So we are just waiting at this point. There are many districts that aren't happy. They don't feel like they had enough time to plan. Some start in July, some start in August, because that won't give them much time if we don't have an announcement till July 1st. I'm curious as to what the other schools are doing, and I'm wondering if we should have another session, if CEASD can host another session when we get closer to that point, because we're already thinking about that. You know, are we going to be allowed back into the classroom, but we have to stay 6 feet apart? They've also talked about you can't, obviously, if a school district has 1,000 students in their building, they can't all be in at the same time, so they have to alternate days. So obviously in our school, we have 300 some students. How will we handle that staggering? What will that look like? What about the furniture, individual desks? We've gotten rid of a lot of those. We use a lot more joint tables now that really encourages that classroom participation. So the idea of coming back to school and having to separate our students in that manner, they would have to be at individual desks. And if that's the case, we don't actually have a lot of that furniture any longer. So when you talk about flexible seating, things that we offer, standing seats, you know, bean bags, etc., it's not as easy of a solution as you would anticipate because of the furniture. And then you think about masks and what we have to provide for all of our students. There are just a whole host of questions that come to mind. Yes, we absolutely hope we're back, but what will that entail? So I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas. We don't have a clear plan at this point in Indiana as of yet, unfortunately.
In New York City, they have already started to develop a recovery plan, and that we've shared that with some of the districts. I know in New York City, they're not planning to fully go back. They're planning to have some days be e-learning and then other days be at location. So for us, we've already begun that process a little bit. In the elementary, we have a semicircle usually, you know, your kindergartners, your pre-K, for the younger students. And so we're going to go ahead and order the furniture. That way we can keep that C shape and just divide into subgroups. For the primary workspace, it would be individual desk. So we have those ordered so that we'll be prepared. And I'm sure that ordering will be limited if we wait too long. So we're getting ahead of the game now.
That's right.
So I advise you all to
gone.
because there may be a shortage.
That's true. Yes, when you talk about August, if school is open, I think that may happen, but I think for the teaching staff, our biggest focus is to have an in-service for the parents, for the students, for the teachers. We need to do that first through Google Classroom because we have had a lot of struggles through that avenue. So we want to provide training to make sure that it is effective. So using Google Classroom, that way, if it happens, if there is a second wave and everyone has to go back to e-learning, we'll be ready. So that is one of the first things on our list for the fall. That is a good point. I just noticed in the chat, somebody, Barbara mentioned CEASD will actually be hosting several online meetings in regards to that recovery and reopening plan. Those will be happening in June, so you can watch out for those dates and participate more in that discussion at that time. A few weeks ago, Ohio, our neighboring state, already announced that they are going to be doing 2 days of staggering for back to the classroom. However, Indiana still has not announced their plan. Okay, any other lingering questions or comments? Boy, this has just been a fantastic discussion this last hour and a half. The variety of topics we've covered has been phenomenal, and getting the perspective from different states and the different challenges. I do feel like overall we're seeing similar issues, and I think that helps us all feel a little better and know that we're not alone in this. And this discussion is definitely beneficial. We're learning from one another and gathering resources through this discussion.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions for Kim?
It's not a question, I just want to add, it's really nice to see the different perspectives. I agree. The Tennessee Department of Education has regional groups for the principals, and that's really nice because we are able to get that administrative support and make sure that we are on the same track. So it helps me because I'm getting that aspect as well as CEASD, this participation together.
Yes, I want to say that I think that all of the deaf schools are doing very well. I think that they're not lost. Everybody knows what they're doing. So a pat on the back to everybody here for the excellent work that you've been doing, and where we will be when we come out of this at some point. When that will be, who knows? But I want to thank you all. And as you know, the webinars are on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Hopefully you'll be able to make it to the next one. And thank you, Kim, for guiding us in a wonderful discussion. Everyone have a great afternoon and stay safe.
Sure, thank you. You all have a good afternoon too.
And thank you to our
Sure.